From our homes to your homes, here are messages from all of us at Dredf wishing you a happy ADA 30th.
The logo for the Disability Rights, Education, and Defense Fund, bright red letters spelling DREDF on a white background, appears on screen. After the logo disappears, a variety of Dredf employees from different ages, ethnicities, and genders introduce themselves one at a time and express gratitude for the ADA on the occasion of its 30th anniversary.
Hello, my name is Susan Henderson. I'm the Executive Director at Disability Rights, Education, and Defense Fund, fondly known as Dredf. I've been at Dredf since 1997. One of my fondest moments while working at Dredf and in this community and knowing that the ADA and other disability rights laws were working was when my son in 2005 had gone off to college. He'd been successfully ignoring my calls for many months, and he called out of the blue because he was online playing the game Star Wars Galaxies, which had just had an upgrade. And disabled gamers were in the chat section in the forum saying, "We can't play anymore. The keyboard commands are gone. What the heck is going on?" So my son wanted to know if there was a way to use the ADA to get the company to make the game accessible once again. He was reading me the comments in the forums, and while we were on the phone, one of the programmers from the company came online and said, "We're working on it, we're gonna get it fixed." And by the end of the day, it was fixed. So at that moment, I knew that our work was being paid attention to, that the community had been successful. One of those people who makes the ADA work is my colleague Hong Yu Min, who I've worked with since 2003 at Dredf. Hong Yu has connected tens of thousands of disabled people with resources and advocates across the country to help them get access to employment, housing, education, you name it. So Hong Yu, take it away.
Hi, my name is Hong Yu Min. As Susan said, I've been Dredf's intake receptionist for 17 years. When I first came to the US as an immigrant from China, I knew very little about disability rights, but I had some experience through my family. My father became paraplegic when I was only 2 years old, and afterwards he never left the same room until he died. So when I first saw people with disabilities roaming freely in the street of Berkeley, and learned people like my sister-in-law were going to school and holding on to union job and retiring with benefits, I was shocked. While those things are more common now, we can never forget that preserving freedom is a constant struggle. And Cheryl Cease, one of our special education advocates, has some to say about that. Happy 30th, ADA.
That's right, Hong. You know, I grew up in a family and in a time when stigma and discrimination meant we never named or even acknowledged disability. Secrets were kept with devastating consequences in some situations. And I now spend my days helping families and youth understand the power of education and civil rights protections in schools, how to use their rights, and the value of disability diversity and what it brings to our community. And when my mother was hospitalized recently in the midst of a public health emergency, it was using the word disability and insisting on accommodations that my mother needed in order to be safe in the hospital, receive round-the-clock care from her caregiver, one of our siblings, and get her safely home. That made all the difference. It helped to have documents crafted by my very own employer and support from them to push back against discrimination and healthcare rationing in a crisis. My colleague Julie can tell you more.
Hi, I'm Julia Barraza, and I am the mother of two sweet young men, one who has multiple disabilities. My work as a bilingual education advocate at Dredf for the last 15 years began as a result of my own challenges navigating the public school system for my son, Ben. My husband and I were desperate to find help when we needed it the most. I will never forget that feeling. Dredf provided training, resources, and I learned to advocate. I then asked to volunteer and give back to the organization that helped me so much. As the daughter of immigrants, I take the lead from our parents' experience. Some of my most fond memories are watching parents and students learn to advocate for themselves or coming back to tell us how they succeeded in advancing the rights of their own child, because ultimately, this advances the rights of all students. I see the results of Dredf's work and the ADA every day. In my community, when I go to the grocery store and there is a sign outside allowing animals, in the school system when parents use their voice to advocate for their child, when I turn on closed captioning on Netflix, when my family is provided accommodated access when we go hiking through the national parks, when we get preferred boarding on the airline flights. The impact of Dredf's work over the last 41 years has been profound, and I am deeply grateful to be a bilingual education advocate with Dredf. My colleague Diana can now tell you more about that impact.
Thank you, Julie. In my culture, having a child with a disability often means that as parents, we have to shield them from the world because they're angels from heaven. I refused to comply with that norm and decided to challenge it. The ADA and the work that we do at Dredf gave me the strength to encourage my children to advocate for themselves and not be limited by how others view their disabilities. Let's keep empowering each other and advocating for our rights. And now, my fellow education advocate, Kenya Martinez.
Thanks, Diana. And empowerment really is key. As an educational advocate who works here in our Parent Training Information Center, I love the fact that I work in an environment here at Dredf where I don't have to hide my physical or learning disability. I can be myself. And because of that, I'm motivated to work on behalf of all children like me who consider themselves possibly not having a disability to begin with. But because of the accommodations that I'm able to help their parents receive due to ADA, I know that they can succeed just like me. And now let's hear from my colleague, Nicole.
My now adult son is a person with dyslexia, and we found our way to Dredf in the late 1990s through other parents of students with disabilities. Dredf's director of communications and a friend who became an advocate had started an internet-based parent network that I joined. If I had not come to work here in 2002, my son would never have gotten access to the education he did to accomplish so much. One of our special education advocates took my son under her wing for his 11th grade IEP and got him the assistive technology he used to finish high school, for college, and in his career. It changed my son's school opportunities and his life. Now I'm a grandmother of 2 little boys. One of my grandsons has a CP diagnosis and learning disabilities. My daughter has become a very skilled advocate and negotiator for her son. So much would not have come to be if I hadn't worked at Dredf. I get to be part of this awesome team. As a mother and grandmother, I've personally benefited from the amazing work of Dredf. I get to help fight the good fight for all children, not just my own. So happy birthday, Americans with Disability Act, and over to you, Arlene.
Hi, my name is Arlene Bayerson. I was the founding directing attorney of Disability Rights, Education, and Defense Fund. That was 1979, and our goal was to have disability rights be recognized as part of the civil rights laws of our nation. The culmination of that, 30 years ago, was the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And since that time, I've used the principles of the ADA, equal opportunity, in ways that were never even envisioned when the ADA passed. Captions on the internet. And with the advent of streaming, and now we're all home, I am so happy that I can stream entertainment into my home and understand it because there are captions. There's so many things the ADA has done for our country and the world. I'm very proud to have been a part of it. Happy anniversary, ADA, and I am pleased to pass the baton to Claudia Center.
Thanks, Arlene. I'm Claudia, and like a lot of people, I have depression, which is a psychiatric disability that can run through families. When I began working on ADA cases in the mid-1990s, I saw my own experiences and needs and abilities in a whole new light. I felt empowered and connected for the first time. And based on my personal and community experiences, I view the zealous implementation of the ADA as essential to the liberation and integration of disabled people. Now, that's not all we need. We need income supports, we need health care, we need reparations for slavery. But the ADA is a cornerstone of the ideal. And on to my work as the legal director of Dredf, I continue to be inspired on a daily basis by the principles and ideals of the ADA and by the work that Dredf and our colleagues across the nation are doing to implement those principles and ideals. And so thank you, ADA. Happy 30th birthday, ADA. And I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague and friend, Sylvia Yee.
There isn't a single incident I want to highlight. It's more of a personal evolution. I think a lot of young adults, of which I was one once, think they have absolutely no connection with disability. I don't have a disability, no family members or close friends with disabilities, etc. But that changes quickly with some small level of observation and a bit of aging. My child is born with asthma, a good friend gets cancer, a brother gets rheumatoid arthritis, my father has a stroke and barely walks. I get a disabled cat, and then I have my own brush with cancer, all in the space of a couple of decades. Because I work at Dredf, my fantastic colleagues have shown me that disability is a natural part of life. Sometimes temporary, sometimes permanent, and life is what I make of it, with or without disabilities. I'm incredibly fortunate to be where I am.
Thank you, Sylvia. So my name is Sydney Pickern, and I'm a staff attorney here at Dredf. Before I came to Dredf, I knew that the world wasn't designed for me as a person with a physical disability and a wheelchair user, and that the discrimination I've experienced in my life wasn't unique to me. But I had no idea I would one day have the opportunity to fight for the inclusion of people with disabilities like myself in accessing the life-sustaining benefits of housing, emergency planning, mental health care, and community inclusion. Being able to do this advocacy has tied me to a movement that has bolstered my identity in ways I honestly didn't know were possible, and has offered me the privilege of working every day to support my community in accessing a better world that we deserve. And I want to say thank you to the advocates who came before me, to the ones doing the hard work of intersectional disability rights, and to the advocate that I aspire to be. Happy birthday, ADA. And now I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Malhar for more.
Thanks, Sid. Hi, everyone. I'm Malhar Shah, and I am the Special Education Staff Attorney at Dredf. I grew up with severe OCD and complex trauma, which has inspired me to work for students with disabilities who are unable to access their education without accommodations. Working with and learning from these students has truly been an inspiration to me and has helped me grow so much. I am so grateful for the work that I'm able to do. Happy 30th ADA anniversary! And next, our Senior Policy Analyst, Marilyn Golden, will tell you more.
I'm Marilyn Golden, Senior Policy Analyst, and my work at Dredf brought me to the ADA before it was even a law in the late 80s. I worked on what a store, restaurant, or hotel must do to improve its accessibility if it's undergoing remodeling, or as the ADA calls it, alterations. Early versions of the bill gave such facilities pretty much a pass on alterations. I had experience working on building access in California, and I knew what was reasonable in alterations, and what we figured out became part of the final ADA. I also really enjoyed getting to engineer the grassroots organizing. I developed and maintained the ADA Regional Contact Network, which had one or two key disability rights leaders in every state or region of the US to mobilize people with disabilities and disability organizations throughout their areas to support the parts of the ADA that were being attacked because we had to overcome the resistance of the business community. Doing this gave me a very concrete and palpable sense of people with disabilities across the country all working together towards one goal, enacting a strong, comprehensive Americans with Disabilities Act, a goal that was accomplished when the law was enacted just over 30 years ago. So the ADA has been the center of my work for 32 years. I've been so thrilled to see it turn 30. Over to you, Carol.
Thanks, Marilyn. Hi, I'm Carol. I work in DC with disability and civil rights partners and as a government affairs liaison. I was introduced to the disability community by one of my best friends, then joined a few years later post-trauma. I'm thankful every day for the opportunity to learn from colleagues, for the privilege to advocate on issues I care deeply about, and to advance Dredf's vision, a just world where all people with and without disabilities live full and independent lives free of discrimination. I'm indebted to Dredf advocates and advocates around the country who work so hard to pass and implement the ADA, who've defended it since, and who've named and acted on the gaps and critical intersections of disability, race, religion, immigration, and LGBTQIA+ status. There's so much work left to do. Thanks to disabled Black, Indigenous, and people of color for their leadership and for developing and sharing principles of disability justice that can guide us over the next 30 years. Next, our Director of Development will share a bit of her experience. It's all yours, Ingrid.
Thank you, Carol. Happy birthday, ADA. For me, Ingrid. I work at Dredf as its development director. That's where I finally get to share an important truth and an important narrative about who I am as a disabled person. The narrative that I am not actually that special. Thank you, ADA, for continuing to push for the shift from special needs to equal rights. That is special. Next up is our Director of Communications, affectionately known inside Dredf as that guy.
Thank you, Ingrid, and thank you, Ndla, for this opportunity for everyone at Dredf, including those who couldn't send a video, Mary Lou, Linda, Nan, Dave, and Carly, to share both our remembrances and our gratitude for the Americans with Disabilities Act on its 30th anniversary. You know, as somebody who has worked primarily in media for the last 25 years and 15 of those in the disability community, I think what I'm most jazzed about at this point in time is that because of those pioneering activists who first paved the way, and those activists, those intersectional activists who are blazing new trails today, we have unprecedented opportunities to change hearts and minds, both in the culture and in the media. So I thank everyone for their hard work toward that end. For Dredf, that's always going to be litigation, legislation, and education, but we've added a new tier this year. And to tell you more about Dredf's work to change representation in media is the project manager for our Disability in Media Alliance project, Kara Reedy.
Thanks, Lawrence. I started at Dredf 2 months ago as the program manager for the Disability Media Alliance project, where we are changing the way disability is represented in the media. It's my first job where I feel like I'm doing the work that is continuing the spirit of the ADA. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to collaborating with disabled journalists, content creators, and advertising professionals. Happy birthday, ADA.